Welcome to the video format of the Entrepreneurial Lifestyle Podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do subscribe to our podcast using the link below. And now enjoy this interview. Today, I'm here with Jeroen Corthout, who is the co-founder and CEO of Salesflare, which is an intelligent CRM built for SMBs selling to B2B. And it's very popular with agencies as well as fast-growing startup companies. Jeroen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Glad to be here.
Brilliant. So could you just, as best you can, give us your entrepreneurial journey in 60 seconds or less, just so our listeners kind of have a better idea of where you've been? I know it's short and sweet, but it gives us an idea of kind of where you've been and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, 60 seconds or less is very short, so I'll be picky. So I think I started with building websites when I was 15, 16. I studied engineering with that thought of doing something with that in the end. And actually, when I applied, I ended up studying biomedical engineering. When I started applying for jobs there, I found out that engineering is not really my thing, but I want to do something more with customers. So I did business school and ended up in a marketing job. And then from there, I have helped companies, mainly life science companies, so imagine pharma companies and stuff, to digitalize, to bring their marketing and sales to a new level. And after trying a bunch of startup companies, while building out one of them, which was another software company, we figured that was very difficult to follow up our leads well with the CRMs we found, and we built Salesflare to solve that.
Okay, cool. So I know you've been running Salesflare since 2014, and I've no doubt you've had a kind of a whirlwind of a journey. What advice would you give to people starting out with their tech business? They're trying to kind of get into it and build some traction. What advice would you give to someone who's kind of building their software but unsure how to best market it to the masses?
Yeah, I think it all starts with not marketing it to the masses. It starts with selling it one by one. And actually before selling it, it starts with doing a lot of customer research. So interviewing a lot of people, which is basically in the end, the start of sales is understanding the people you're selling to. So really, I think we did 40 customer interviews or so with people from all kinds of different roles, all in sales, to understand how they organize their sales, what role software played there, what kind of issues they had and all that. We only did that actually towards the end of 2014. We started doing that systematically. In the beginning, we were just going from here to there, like trying to sell our software that wasn't there yet. That was not a great idea. The good thing is really understanding a customer, listening to a lot of them, then building something they need, and then going back to them and say, look, now we built this. It's really about validating your idea step by step. And never going too far with the next step. So first you find out what they need, you build something simple, you see what they think, then you try to build something that they actually use. And then when they start using, then you try to figure out what they would pay for. And then when they pay, you figure out how you can get more people to pay for it. And then at some point when you have a lot of people, you start figuring out like, how can we make them pay even more? About what kind of stuff can we add that makes it interesting, and how can we, very important in SaaS business, how can we keep them on the software as well, that they don't stay shortly, because in the end that's what makes a subscription business work. But back to your question a bit, a lot of SaaS companies starting out around here ask me like, they say like, your marketing is great, how can we do the same and all that? And they look at our blog and they think we've always run a blog, but it's not true. In the beginning, you should, I believe at least, you should definitely not spend a lot of time on a blog. A blog is only going to bring you leads years into the future, at least at a good level. In the beginning, you should really be close to your customers, talking to them, finding your customers, demoing to them, getting them on board on your software, supporting them, and trying to get that going. And as soon as you've sold it to, depending on the size of your customers, maybe 10, maybe 30 or 40 customers or whatever, that's when you can say, okay, now we have something that works. How can we scale this? And that's when you start really building out your marketing. In the beginning, it's mostly sales.
Okay, got it. Love that. So for those listening who are starting that journey and they're doing it themselves and they're looking for a co-founder, I think a question that I get asked a lot is, how do I find the right co-founder? Like, how do I meet them? How did you find the journey with yourself? And what advice would you give to people looking to find that co-founder to help support them on their journey?
Yeah, that can be a very hard thing. I had that experience in a previous company where I had an idea I wanted to develop. I just needed someone to build it. That would be my technical co-founder, and I didn't find that person. Well, I found some people, but it was hard to get them on board. We didn't come up with things together, and there was always this difficult discussion. Actually, what happened in the end is I tried a bunch of stuff. I went to some startup weekends, etc. And in the end, along the way, I found my co-founder. We started working on a software business together, and then we started this one. The other thing is really hard, and I honestly have no idea how to do it well. I think most good companies start with co-founders together, but I think you have to somehow get going already before you find the right person.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that you can't be waiting for someone to be able to help you move forward. I think you've got to gain that momentum, at least get the ball rolling and allow you to move forward. So for someone who's kind of getting their sales in, they're looking to scale their business, maybe they've got their 30 or 40 customers. What do you find is some of the biggest mistakes that people make at that step in order to start to scale their business up? And what advice would you give to someone who's at that stage?
I think the biggest mistake I see people make is getting too much distance from their customers too soon. It's, for instance, when you're in SaaS, putting up a site where you can just subscribe for a trial and nobody ever talks to you, and you're trying to figure out why they don't do anything by watching some screen videos, and you can't get a hold of them. It's hard to see all the embarrassing moments that these people go through, or understand their context and all this kind of thing. So I would definitely say try to not let go of that personal touch for as long as you can, because being close to your customers is what informs your whole business. And then maybe a bit more about sales. But it's sort of around the same topic. Sales is not about giving demos just like that, not about running through a PowerPoint or through your software. It's really about having a conversation with your customers to understand what it is they need, and then tailoring, even if you just sell a standard product, tailoring at least your explanation and the advice you give around it to what it is they need. And a lot of salespeople still don't seem to have understood that. I often have salespeople trying to sell stuff to me as well, where I think, well, this is horrible. They didn't even listen to what do I need anything like this? They didn't even ask me that question. So it's some advice I would like to pass.
Brilliant. Yeah. And I definitely think you want to be able to, tailor your product and put it in a way whereby you are representing it in the way in which your customer needs, to really allow them to look at it as a great software to be able to allow them to move forward. Now, I know that you were running Doctura and Salesflare at a somewhat similar time. I know they overlapped. How was it kind of running two businesses at the same time for you?
Doctura is more my sort of quote unquote consulting company that quote unquote works for Salesflare right now. But in the past, it was indeed a separate startup. And that's actually the one where I found it really hard to find a co-founder. Yeah. Got
it. And when we look into scaling up and moving things forward, I think a lot of people struggle with that balance of marketing and focusing on product. And I see a lot of tech founders focusing a lot on the product and not a lot on the marketing. Now, I know you've had a very big marketing background with everything that you've done. So obviously that's been drilled into you. But for a lot of people, they still struggle with trying to find that balance. How is it that you found that balance in your startup? Was there some things that you had in place, the way you budgeted, where you spent your time? How did you manage that?
First of all, I think it starts off with a lot of product and little marketing. And as you go, it's less product and more marketing. But the way we try to find that balance right now is, well, first our team is split sort of into, we call it business and product. Our team is split that way in terms of resources, and it's sort of an even split. But we set targets with respect to the kind of things we want to do in a year with our resources and the kind of results we want to achieve with that. We call those habits. Habits because it's stuff we do on a regular basis. Every month we do this much of that, and then we have the results, is the numeric things we want to achieve by doing that at the end of the year. That is all set at the start of the year. We just set that for 2022. And like that, we make sure that our resources are properly spread over the stuff we need to achieve.
Got it. And for someone listening who is trying to figure out perhaps the best way in order to build a structure towards their business, is there anything that you found has been helpful with building perhaps some structure or some regular check-ins that you find has allowed you to maintain that momentum as opposed to heading in the wrong direction? Is there any things that you do on a consistent basis that keeps you on track?
Yeah, I think some of the things that help most there is, for instance, our team meeting every 2 weeks. We have a meeting in which with the whole team, we look like at the past 2 weeks and we say what didn't go well and what did go well. And what didn't go well, we immediately look into it. Well, after listing, we look into every single point and see how we can make sure it doesn't happen anymore, how we improve it. The positive stuff, we try to learn from those. And at the end, we also have a little metrics and demo moments where we look at the current state and new cool things we've been doing in the past 2 weeks. That way, we always keep our team sharp. But then next to that, we have also all the things like stand-up meetings in the mornings where everybody shares what they've done the last day and what they're going to do that day. It helps a lot with knowing what other people are doing, with communication around that, but also for your personal planning. And then we have one-on-ones every month on a personal basis. This is like the team meeting, but that's on a personal basis. So things that don't necessarily fit in the team context, but are more a one-on-one kind of thing are discussed there. And then we have sort of strategic meetings on the one end where we decide on things we're going to do. We have this for product and we have it for business. But then we also have the weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the team, planning meetings where we decide what's going to happen during that period.
God, I love that. I definitely think being able to, have that structure is incredibly important to allow you to snowball what you're doing sustainably. What advice do you wish someone told you when you first started out with building your SaaS business?
That it wouldn't go as fast as we thought, and that we'd need a lot of resources. I think looking for cash is an important thing. And it's something you always need to do on time. We've done it quite late sometimes, and it all worked out, as you can tell. But I definitely wish we would have put some more thought into that, because it would lead to less dangerous situations. And you just need a lot of investment. If you build out a SaaS company, it's very different from what software companies did in the past. In the past, a software consultancy goes to a client. The client says, let's build this. They say, that's great. We'll bill you 50% of that up front and 50% at the end. And they have half of the cash there already. Then there were companies that started selling software products, and they said, well, you buy this this upfront license kind of thing, and then there's a recurring cost, but it's way lower. That was the model after that, and that's still nice because then you build the software first, but then you get quite some money and then a bit less. Now in SaaS companies, it's completely crazy. You build software for many years, and then at some point somebody comes in and thinks, oh, this is nice, and they start paying you on a month-to-month basis, so the money starts dripping in very slowly, and they can leave it anytime they want. So you need a ton of investment before it actually starts taking off.
Yeah, I love the way in which you've described that business model. And obviously the difference is very different now compared to what most people are used to. And obviously it's a lot of time intensive and building a great product for people to, give a go and have those monthly subscriptions. Now, when it comes to obviously yourself building out that SaaS business, what do you think are some of the key elements of building out that SaaS, especially when it comes to funding, that you think is most important for people to take into account? So for example, for those they're building their SaaS business, but they're looking for funding, like what advice would you give to someone to prepare funding in advance so that they don't run out of investment halfway through building their product?
Yeah. Look at the sources that are available to you. There's way more than you would think. There's not just VCs out there. Also look for sources that align with the way you're planning to grow your business. And we actually have a whole, if you type startup funding Salesflare in Google, you'll find our startup funding masterclass, and it goes into all these details. There's a lot of things that go into it, but the most important thing is money doesn't have to come from VCs.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And obviously you built a CRM because it wasn't working for you, and you obviously built your own with Salesflare. Now, for those listening who don't really understand, they may not even know what CRM means, right? Obviously it's customer relationship management. You've got a system there that works. What do you find is the key elements that you think is most important in someone getting a CRM software? Like if someone doesn't have it, what are they missing out on?
Yeah. In the customers we're selling to are doing B2B sales, like you said at the beginning. So for them, it's really about sales follow-up. If you're an e-commerce store, that might be something else. But for B2B sales, a CRM is really about following up sales well. And then a lot of things also come from there, like secondary benefits. And if you want that to work, the only way it's going to work is if your sales team actually uses the CRM. So that's the main thing you should be looking at when you're trying different CRM systems, is try it together with the sales team, try to get them to actually use it and see whether they like it. This will mean that the chances are higher, obviously, that they're going to use it because they vetted it, but also that you have their buy-in, which is extremely important as well. And that's actually what we focus on most at Salesflare as well. It's trying to build a system that salespeople actually use. And we do that by making it, one, very easy, which everybody tries to do. But second, we also build a system which others don't really do, which is primarily based on existing data. So it's almost fully automated, but you can still manage data also manually. But it's primarily automatically, and that way it just relieves all that pressure on salespeople to constantly fill out the CRM to make the whole thing work. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, brilliant. And if someone was listening and you wanted to give them kind of your best piece of advice before we were to wrap up for building a SaaS software business, I mean, what piece of advice would you wish someone had told you when you first started out?
Apart from the stuff I already said, I would say, we'll talk about the very basics. Sell to an audience that you can identify with quite well, where you know a lot of people, where you understand what it is they're looking for. Not only will you have a much easier time to build your software in the initial stages, it will also make it much more fun for you, because in the long run, you'll be in touch with these people a lot. So if you don't enjoy it, that's probably a pity. And you will start getting further and further from the customer, which will not help your business. So I would say build something for people you enjoy to being in touch with, and you'll probably do a way better job than otherwise.
Brilliant. And for those listening who want to find out more about Salesflare and yourself, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, for Salesflare, it's just easy. It's salesflare.com, and Flare is Flare. You can find out about the software. You can try it. Obviously, there's a trial that starts at 7 days, but goes up to 30 if you go through the setup steps. Just connect to your mailbox and it starts working for you. And if you want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is the best place. Just type my name if you find it somewhere here. It's Jeroen Corthout. You type it into LinkedIn. There's only one person with that name, so you can't miss. But do include a personal message with the connection request. Otherwise, I will have to assume that, like other connection requests, this one is spam. But if you include a personal message, I'll certainly get in touch with you and we can have a chat.
Brilliant. Well, Jeroen, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. For those listening, do get in touch. Make sure to check out Salesflare with everything that's going on. And we will see you on the next one.